But A players excel. They're self-starting. They're super resourceful. They don't quit, right? When times get hard, like right now, they don't quit. And they're accountable. That's a big one, right? Accountability. Is this somewhere where they can have a successful exit or an IPO, and can they earn a lot of money on their W-2, right? That's super important. You've got to sell that opportunity, right? A players want to go to winning teams. You've got to sell why your team can win. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on how I've historically recruited A players by selling the opportunity. The second thing is A players want to be surrounded by other A players. So they want a culture of excellence. They want to be around people that are hardworking, high intellect, other accountable people. I'm allowed to do one swear presentation, my mom told me. So what I call this is they want to be around people that give a shit. That's really what A players want, okay? That would be my only swear, I promise. That's pretty good for a guy from Boston. They want to go somewhere that they know is going to make them better, right? A players always want to get better. We talked about that. So they want that culture of development, that culture of growth. And then lastly, they want to know what good looks like. And they want to know exactly how they can get there, right? So I'm going to break these things down. The first is you want to sell the outcomes that they can drive, but you want to sell more the growth and development that they can have at your organization. How are they going to leave better than the day they started? What are you going to do for them to make them better sellers, to make them more experts, to make their potential career path go up and to the right, which A players want. They want growth. The second thing is nobody cares how your zero trust technology is going to change the way people authenticate in IT. Like, nobody cares. Sorry. So you have to sell the process over the mission. You want to sell them how you're going to make them cybersecurity sales experts that can walk into a room with any CISO in the country and close a deal, and how they're going to do that, right? So yes, your mission matters, and there are probably some founders in the room. I'm a founder myself. I believe in my mission greatly. But when I hire somebody, I want them to understand that when they're done with me, they're going to be able to get any job that they want because I'm going to make them an expert. And that's why I have a team of A players. The other thing is A players want to be super clear and super concise on what their goals are, right? They want to know exactly how can they achieve their goals and how can they get there, right? So vagueness is not good for A players. It's not good. You want to know exactly what do I need to do to make the amount of money that I want to make this year. There's a lot of talk, and I've sold to mostly CIOs my whole career, complex enterprise technology from virtualization all the way to cloud management. But now I'm in selling to salespeople for the first time in my career. So I'm on like the LinkedIn bubble of like all these LinkedIn influencers, and there's a lot about giving people autonomy and giving people balance, which I think is really healthy. But there's a line, we've definitely crossed it. You gotta have a playbook. Like, people want to come and they want to know, what do I need to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis to get to the goal that I have myself? A players have goals. You've got to give them the roadmap to get there. Today, come by our booth. We have what's called a winner's manual. One of my employees was a college football coach at Michigan State, and they gave every player at the beginning of the season a book about this thick. We have an example of it at our desk. You need to do the same thing for your sales organization. What is the winner's manual? How do we win? The other thing, my dad used to say this to me when I was little. He used to say, plant tomatoes, get tomatoes. I see a lot of companies, not so much now, but 6-7 months ago when things were buzzing, selling flexibility, work-life balance, right? We have a fun culture. If that's how you lead your recruiting efforts, that's the type of people you're going to get. You're not going to get A players if that's your sales pitch about your company. Because guess what? It's about to get even harder than it's been for the last few months. Those people are not going to last. You're going to have to put in extra work. You're going to have to really bear down and get it done. You document, you measure, and you incentivize 3 things: a passion for excellence, practicing with intention, which is why I love Coach CRM and what they're doing, and pursuit of goals. So those three things are what A players grow up doing, okay? So a little bit about passion for excellence and skills. So when I think about skills, I think about knowing what does good look like and why does good look like. So we talk a lot about PLG. If PLG is part of your motion, then a skill that you need to really focus on with your team is discovery and qualification, right? You got your marketers telling you, we bring in 500 leads a week. I don't know why your sales team can't close them. Because you're not practicing that skill that matters for your business. You're selling large enterprise deals, then you need to get really good at discovering business problems and tying to the biggest business problem in the business. People spend 7 figures to solve 8-figure problems, 6 figures to solve 7-figure problems. So if you have 6-figure software, you better teach your salespeople how to find those 7-figure problems, right? Habits. When I think of habits, all of these things, I think of the why, right? You don't just tell people, hey, you need to be calling at this time, emailing at this time, filling out your Salesforce at this time. Those are important habits, but you need to explain to people why are those important habits, and how do they tie back to your goal to make $1 million every year, right, as an A player. And then process, same thing. You want to go back to, again, why is this the process? Why do we have to get to an economic buyer before we share our price, right? Why do we have to tie to their ecosystem of technologies they've already invested in during our deal cycle? You need to explain the why. And you also need to document this. And you need to incentivize the people that are doing it. The next thing is practicing all that stuff, right? We used to do weekly competitions. We had 2 hours blocked off every single Friday, and we would bring our CEO in, our CFO, and our founder, and we would do head-to-head competitions on pitches, discovery calls, cold calls, all that stuff. So that's super important, is continued repetition with peers and leaders, and everybody in the organization owns this. Every single person from the top down. In terms of the environment, so this conference is a really good example. There's so much content out there for your sellers to be consuming now, the podcasts, the books. Don't just expect them to do it, incentivize them to do it, right? You guys are in this room, so I'm assuming you're working at organizations that want you to go out and learn, but that should be a metric that you're tracking. Who's doing the extracurricular activity, right? Who's going out on the skinny branches and trying to learn every single day? And who's hugging the tree trunk, right? Those are the people that aren't A players and they're not gonna make it. Pursuit of goals. I love sales because there's a scoreboard. I like that. I grew up with one. Unfortunately, I got to play Division I college hockey, but my little brother played in the NHL and represented the United States in the Olympics in 2018. So I grew up in a household where I wasn't even the best hockey player at the breakfast table. So what did I do? I tried to chug my orange juice faster than him, right? I just love winning because I didn't win a lot growing up. So I love the scoreboard in sales, and guess who else does? A players like the scoreboard. They like seeing their name up at the top. I've been living in quarters for the last 17 years, right? 90 days at a time. But that's a lot, especially when kids are first getting started. You gotta break down that clock into lower chunks. Have a week, track progression, measure it, incentivize progression. So create that clock, because people can sprint when they know there's an end. So if you have weekly goals, weekly spiffs, you know, those things matter and they impact people in a really, really good way. I've seen it happen myself. When you think about going out to the world and recruiting A players, you got to learn how to sell your opportunity, whatever it is, right? Not everybody has $1 trillion TAM and some patent on an algorithm, right? You got to figure out what is your unique IP and how can you position that to an A player and all that other stuff we talked about in that software algorithm, and I'm happy to share that with everybody. But again, don't over pivot there, because then you're going to end up with a bunch of mercenaries, and great sales teams are built out of missionaries. That culture of excellence, right? If you do get an A player, incentivize that A player to find people like themselves. A players know other A players. That's a big thing, right? Have a special incentive for top performers when they bring in their friends and people they know in the job market. Really, you should be telling people about your culture, about your development, about the growth opportunity they have, about how you're going to make them better during the interview process, and really lay out how you clearly define goals. It's super important. In terms of that last piece, overselling the flexibility, overselling the fun culture, laid back culture. Be really careful with that, and just remember, it is gonna make recruiting harder, right? Recruiting is hard. It was hard like 3-4 months ago when I started the business at the beginning of this year. I thought we were gonna be $1 billion company, and then June hit, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta stop going out to dinner so much. But that being said, that cycles, everybody in this room knows it's gonna come back, and we're gonna go crazy again and focus on growth at all costs. But when you're recruiting, and you think that doing those things, selling the flexibility, just remember, like, it's gonna come back to bite you. So you can either do that and get a bunch of people in to meet your quotas of hiring, but you're gonna have to replace those people, all right? And it's gonna be hard. So choose your hard, really, like anything else. It's gonna be hard to recruit if you don't oversell the fun, laid-back culture, but you're gonna find way better people if you talk about how much focus there is on growth, development, measurement of success, and driving those outcomes. That's going to lead to having a great organization. It'll take you longer, but going back to the stats I started with, if you're hiring BDR teams and you're saying, you're telling your company, I can't find people, there's 19 million college students out there, right? 25% of them graduate every year. You can find them, you can find the A players. It might take a little bit longer if you're not selling the fact that they can have a side gig or something, but you're going to find the right people, right? So choose your hard. Thank you guys very much. This was awesome.